September 1944. Occupied Holland. It's pitch black, and he can't breathe out loud. He's inside a wall, a cupboard with the width of his shoulders, his face so close to the wallpaper door he can smell the paste. Beyond that paper, a boot scrapes the floor. A chair drags. Then a voice, German, calm, asking questions in the tone of a man who has all night. We have all night. Through the wall, the sound he has learned to dread, an Allied soldier being interrogated by the SS. He cannot cough. He cannot shift his weight. His legs shake from standing, his water nearly gone. Days in this dark. No end in sight. If one board creaks, the questions stop being someone else's problem and become a bullet. Twice the Axis has had this man behind walls, and twice he has walked out. He is the man they cannot hold. He escapes everything by moving. And now he has chosen the one trap where moving means death, and stillness is the only way out. How does the man the enemy could never hold survive the one cage he can't run from? And which voice through that wall will not make it out alive? To understand the cupboard, go back 3 years. For the first time, a country tried to keep him and failed. February 10th, 1941. A handful of British paratroopers fall out of the freezing dark over the mountains of southern Italy. There are 38 of them. They are the first British airborne soldiers ever sent to war, and almost nobody back home believes the idea will work. His name is Anthony Deane-Drummond. He is 23, the signals officer, the man whose job is to keep the team talking to the outside world. The target is a stone aqueduct at Trigino, a pipeline carrying water to 2 million Italians, and the ports that feed Mussolini's war. They find it in the dark, they pack the base of it with explosives, they light the fuses, drop flat, and blow a span of the aqueduct into the river below. The first British airborne raid in history works exactly as planned, and then the second half of the plan collapses. The submarine that is meant to surface off the coast and carry them home never comes. The rendezvous compromised before they even land. So, 38 men in British battle dress with no transport and no way out start walking across enemy mountains in the dead of winter, hunted by soldiers, police, and farmers with shotguns. They are foreigners in uniform in a valley where everyone knows everyone. Within days, cold and starving, every one of them is caught. Most men would call that the end of the story. For him, it is the beginning. He becomes a prisoner of war, locked in a camp in the Italian hills. And almost from the first morning, he has been doing the thing he will do for the rest of the war. He is studying the walls. He is counting the guards. He is asking the only question that matters to him. Where is the gap? He finds it. He gets out. They caught him again. That would break most men. Instead, it teaches him. Captivity, he learns, is not a wall. It is a habit of waiting for it to be released. So, he stops waiting. When illness lands him in a hospital in Florence, he sees his second gap, and he takes it. He slips out of the building and vanishes into a country that wants him dead. What follows is not a dash to a fence. It is a months-long evasion the length of enemy Italy, on foot, alone, with a war between him and the border. He moves at night and lies still by day. He begs food from people who could turn him in for a reward. He trusts strangers and prays they are not informers, because one wrong door ends it. He walks and keeps walking north toward the one line on the map that means safety, hundreds of miles of enemy ground, until he crosses into neutral Switzerland, and from there, at last, home. Every step of that journey teaches him the same truth he will need in a wall 3 years later, that getting out is never the end. Getting out is where the real distance begins. Think about what that record actually says. 2 cages, 2 escapes, a man who treats prison walls the way you treat a revolving door. By the time he reaches England, he has a reputation. He is the officer the Axis could not keep. And reputations like that are dangerous, because they make a man believe the rule will always hold. That move will always save him. September 1944. The British are planning the largest airborne operation in the history of the world. A bold leap deep behind German lines in Holland to seize a bridge and end the war by Christmas. He volunteers. What happens when the only weapon that has ever saved him motion meets a battlefield where the cage closes faster than any man can run? September 17th, 1944. The sky over Holland fills with parachutes until it looks like snow is falling upward. He jumps with the British 1st Airborne Division, and he jumps as its senior signals officer. Remember that word. Signals. His entire job, the reason he is here, is to keep an army able to talk to itself. Hold that thought, because the war is about to take it from him in the cruelest way possible. The plan needs the division to land, link up, and grab the bridge at Arnhem fast. But the drop zones are 8 miles from the bridge. 8 miles of an enemy that turns out to be far stronger than anyone admitted. And then the thing his whole career depends on simply dies in his hands. The radios fail. Not a few of them. Almost all of them. The sets are the wrong type for the distance. The batteries die. The frequencies will not carry across the wooded miles between the drop zones and the bridge. The units cannot hear each other. Headquarters cannot reach the men at the front. A division of 10,000 soldiers goes suddenly blind and deaf in the middle of a battle. It is already losing, unable to call for help, unable to coordinate, unable to learn that the enemy waiting for them is not a few tired garrison troops, but 2 divisions of hardened SS armor. And of all the men this disaster could fall on, it falls hardest on him, the signals officer, the man whose entire reason for being here is to keep the army talking, standing helpless while the army goes mute. Hold on to that irony, because it is about to follow him into the dark. The communications expert is about to spend 13 days unable to make a single sound. He does the only thing left. He moves. He pushes forward on foot through streets that are turning into a slaughterhouse, trying to reach the handful of paratroopers who made it to the bridge and are now surrounded, trying to carry orders by hand because the airwaves are dead. He never gets there. The German ring closes faster than men can run. Cut off with 3 other soldiers, he goes to the ground in a small back room of the house. And here is the first whisper of what is coming. The house is occupied by Germans. They are in the next room. For 3 days, he and his men sit in forced, total stillness, listening to the enemy move on the other side of a thin wooden door, learning a lesson he does not yet know he will need, that sometimes survival is not running, it is not making a sound. If a story this strange and this true is the kind of thing you want more of, this is the channel that hunts them down, and the button below is how you make sure the next one finds you. On the 4th night, they break for it. They split up to improve the odds, and he goes to the river. The lower Rhine in late September is black and cold enough to stop the heart. He slides in anyway and swims, current dragging at his boots, lungs burning, the far bank and freedom getting closer with every stroke. He reaches the other side. He drags himself up out of the water, soaked, frozen, alive, clear, and climbs straight up into a German trench. September 22nd. Captured. Again. Sit with how cruel that is. He beat the room, he beat the river, he did everything his whole life had taught him. He moved, he ran, he swam, and motion, the thing that had saved him twice in Italy, walks him directly into enemy hands. What lesson is left for a man who has escaped every cage they could build for him, and what happens when the only way out is to do the opposite of everything that has ever saved him? The house at Velp is not a prison. It is something worse. It is a sorting station run by the 9th SS Panzer Division, the place where captured Allied soldiers are held, questioned, and then shipped east to Germany, where men disappear for years or forever. He understands arithmetic at once. To stay a prisoner here is to be lost. Every hour he remains a name on their list, the closer he drifts to a cattle truck heading the wrong way across Europe. The clock is not on his side. It never was. But this time there is no gap. There is no sleeping hospital, no quiet mountain border, no dark river. The house is full of enemies, armed SS in the halls, on the stairs, at the doors. The one tool he has used his entire war, motion, is suicide here. Walk in any direction and you walk into a German. And then he sees it. A seam in the wallpaper. A line where the pattern does not quite match. His eye, the eye of a man who has spent 3 years reading walls for weaknesses, catches what the guards walk past every day. Behind the paper is a shallow built-in cupboard, sealed and papered over, a hollow in the wall barely deep enough to hold a man standing up. And he makes the decision that defines his life. Not to run. Running is death. He decides to do the opposite of everything he has ever done. He decides to vanish, to seal himself inside the wall of the very house his captors are living in, a few feet from the men hunting him, and simply cease to exist. Understand what a reversal this is. Every escape he has ever made was about getting away, putting miles between himself and the cage. This one is about getting closer, pressing himself into the heart of the enemy's own building and refusing to move at all. On the morning of September 23rd, he slips through the wallpaper, folds himself into a space too small to sit in, and pulls it shut behind him, locking the world out and himself in. The first reckoning comes fast. There is no light. None. The dark is total, the kind that presses on your eyes. There is no room to sit, so he stands and will keep standing. He has almost no water and a few scraps of bread. And then, through the wall, the first interrogation begins. A captured man's voice, a German's questions, the long silences in between, every sound teaching him in exact detail what is waiting if the wallpaper is ever pulled aside. He has bet his life on the one ability his record has never once tested, the ability to do nothing, perfectly, for as long as it takes. Then footsteps cross the room beyond the paper, and stop, right outside. A German leans against the wall, his shoulder a few inches from Deane-Drummond's face, separated by a sheet of paper and the thinnest layer of wood. He stops breathing. He turns to stone in the dark, every muscle screaming, listening to a man relax against the surface that is the only thing keeping him alive, and understanding, with a cold drop in his stomach, that this is not the worst of it. This is only day one. What does a man do for 12 more when standing has become agony? The body is failing in the dark, and the only voice he can still hear is the one inside his own head telling him to give up. Now the real war begins, and it is fought entirely inside one man, in the dark, without a single shot. The body goes first, because the body always does. The bread runs down to crumbs, then to nothing. The water gets rationed to sips, then to wet his lips, then to memory. He has been standing for days, and the human body is not built to stand for days. His legs swell, his knees lock and unlock in waves of fire. There is no sleep, not real sleep, because to sleep is to fall, and to fall is to make a sound, and to make a sound is to die. So he drifts and jerks awake, for hours, for days. And there is the problem no one ever puts in adventure stories. A body trapped in a box still does what bodies do. Hunger, thirst, the slow betrayals of flesh, and every one of them must be managed in total silence, in the dark, in a space he cannot leave, with armed men a sheet of paper away. The indignity of it is its own kind of torture, the steady grinding of a soldier down into something less than a man, and there is no one to see it and no way to make it stop. He learns to measure his own heartbeat. He learns which way to lean so a knee does not crack. He learns to swallow without a sound, to shift his weight over a slow count so the floorboard does not betray him, to fight the body's animal's urge to cough or sneeze or simply groan. Every reflex you never think about becomes a mortal enemy. You try it sometime. Stand in a closet and do not move. Do not sit. Do not sleep for 1 hour. He did it for 13 days, and the SS were real. Then the mind comes for him, and the mind is worse. Time stops meaning anything. With no light and no sleep, hours stretch and snap. Is it a day? Is it night? Has it been 4 days or 7? The dark fills with the things the dark always fill with. Fear that swells until it is hard to breathe. And beneath the fear, the quiet, reasonable voice of despair. The voice that says you cannot do this. The voice that says, just step out, just open the door, just end the waiting. Anything is better than this. The voice that has talked braver men than him into giving up. And on the other side of the wall, the enemy keeps living on its ordinary day. The traffic of boots, the counting of prisoners, and again, the interrogations. More captured men, more questions, more of the long broken silences, each one a rehearsal of his own death playing out a few feet away. Here is the vice, and here is why this trap is unlike any he has faced. In Italy, every cage had a door. This one has 2, and both are death. He cannot stay. His body is failing in real time, days from collapse, and a body that collapses make noise. He cannot leave. The house is still full of the SS, so the moment he steps out, he is a recaptured prisoner against a wall. Stay and die. Leave and die. Both doors shut at the same time. Everything his reputation was built on is useless now. He cannot outrun this. There is nowhere to run inside a wall. He cannot outthink it. There is no clever trick that empties a house of soldiers. He cannot outfight it, one man, starved, against a building of SS. Every skill that ever saved him is locked outside the cupboard with the daylight. The only weapon he has left is the one thing nobody can see, and nobody can take from him, the flat refusal to break. The will that walked him the length of Italy is now being tested in its purest, most stripped-down form, not in motion, but in absolute stillness, hour after hour after hour, with nothing to show for it, no ground gained, no distance closed, only the same black box and the same enemy and the same impossible order to himself, hold. And the cruelest part is that nothing happens. There is no climax to fight, no door to charge. There is only time, piling up in the dark, each hour identical to the last, each one demanding the same total victory over his own body and his own fear, and offering no reward except the chance to do it all again in the next hour. That is the trap, not the SS, the endlessness. And then, somewhere past the point where he has stopped counting, the sounds beyond the wall change. The boots come less often. The interrogations stop. He hears prisoners being moved out, orders called, the busy noise of men packing to leave. And then something he has not heard in what feels like a lifetime. Silence. Real silence. The room beyond the cupboard goes empty and still. The trap may finally open. After 13 days on a wall, the door he could never use might be about to clear. Is the way out opening at the exact moment he has become too broken to take it? And what does freedom mean when it arrives at the exact moment the man who outlasted the SS is too broken to walk through it? The evening of October 4th, he listens, and the house stays silent. No boots, no voice. The SS sorting station has packed up and moved on, and the building around him is finally, impossibly, empty. He pushes the wallpaper door open. Light, even the dim light of dusk, is a hammer after 13 days of total dark. He half falls out of the wall onto legs that have forgotten how to hold him. A starved, filthy, blinking shape unfolding from inside a house. There is no time to recover. He drags himself to a window and slips out into the open air, and for the first time in nearly 2 weeks, he is not entombed. But the cupboard was only halfway through the trap. He is still standing in the middle of occupied Holland, a hunted enemy soldier in a country crawling with Germans. He hides in the bushes until it is full dark. Then he walks, barely, into an orchard and does the thing a starving man does. He tears into the apples until he is sick, the first real food his body has held in days. At dawn, he takes the gamble his whole survival now depends on. He knocks on the door of a house, and he trusts. He trusts right. The people inside are part of the Dutch resistance, and they make a choice that should stop you cold. They take him in, knowing exactly what it means. In occupied Holland, hiding a British officer is not a fine or a prison term. It is a death sentence for them and often for their whole family, carried out without a trial. They know this. They open the door anyway. For weeks, ordinary Dutch families pass him from house to house, feeding a starving man out of rations they barely have, hiding him in attics and cellars, moving him one step ahead of the patrols. He is not a soldier to them, not a strategic asset. He is a human being who needs help, and they risk everything they own and everyone they love to give it to. Remember that the next time someone tells you, ordinary people can do nothing, these ones did everything. And then the larger machine finally closes the loop. The escape that began in a wall ends as part of something bigger than one man. Operation Pegasus. British intelligence, the Dutch resistance, and American and Canadian troops on the far bank quietly gather the scattered survivors of Arnhem, the men who hid, swam, and crawled their way out of the disaster. Roughly 138 of them, and on the night of October 22nd, lead them through the dark to the lower Rhine. Boats slide out across the same black water that once dragged him down. This time it carries him the other way, to his own lines, to safety, home. Now look back at the image we started with and see it for what it really was. The man, motionless in the dark, was not hiding. Hiding is passive. What he did on that wall was the hardest, most violent fight of the entire campaign, fought with no weapon but his own will, against an enemy that lived in his own head. Endurance was an escape. The man who had beaten every cage by moving survived the one cage that could only be beaten by being perfectly, agonizingly still. But the channel does not let you leave on a clean high because the truth was not clean. He came out. Most did not. Arnhem swallowed his division, 10,000 men gone in, only a couple of thousand walking out, the rest killed or marched into captivity. Of the survivors hiding across Holland, only those 138 made it across in Pegasus. And the voices he heard through the wallpaper, the captured men, the broken silences during those endless interrogations, were not all as fortunate as the man listening in the dark. He survived inside that wall partly by listening to others who would not. So count it up. Twice in Italy, once at Arnhem. 3 times the Axis put Anthony Deane-Drummond inside its walls. 3 times he got out by running, by swimming, and finally by doing nothing at all for 13 days while the SS questioned dying men an arm's length away. He came home. He was decorated for it, and he lived a long life that carried him into other wars and other deserts. But the lesson of the cupboard outlived all of it, and it was never about the walls. The trap was never the cupboard. The trap was despair, the voice in the dark telling him to give up. And the bravest thing he ever did was refuse to listen to it. There is one more story like this, another man, another impossible room, another will that would not break. And it begins exactly where this one ends. If this story keeps you up, there's another one that will finish the job. A 19-year-old East German soldier who had helped build the Berlin Wall decided the only way out was to drive straight through it, and he learned to operate a Soviet armored personnel carrier by chatting up real tank crews, rammed 7 tons of steel into the cinder blocks he had helped raise, and dragged himself over the top while guards emptied their rifles at point-blank range. That video is on screen now.